Welcome everyone, my name's Sylph, and this is my attempt to beat a Hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon White 2 with only Electric-type Pokemon. The full rule set for this run is listed down below, but basically only the first Electric-type encounter in each route or area can be caught. If a Pokemon faints, it must be permanently boxed, no items except held items in battle, party Pokemon levels are limited to the next gym leader or Elite Four's ace, and finally the battle mode must be put on set at all times. The Electric type is definitely a cool one in Black 2 and White 2 with all the fully evolved Pokemon on screen available. But since we don't play with Legendaries, Thundurus and Zekrom aren't viable options, and Stunfisk is also only available in the post-game. Whatever will we do without Stunfisk? No, seriously, a part ground type would be very helpful. Finally, since Electivire is only available through Trade Evolution and we're not allowed to connect to any other games, we'll be stuck with Electabuzz there. Electric types on the whole are quite speedy and quite powerful, however they are definitely quite frail as well, so I can already foresee some major challenges we might face. When it comes to this run, I can't help but remember our good old Sharpedo named Nato from our Emerald Dark Only run who tragically got KO'd. If only we had a more reliable water shark that had no problem with electric types. I searched the land far and wide, or ocean I suppose, and finally found one, Surfshark VPN, who have made today's video possible. Surfshark is a virtual private network that keeps you and your data safe by encrypting all of the information sent between your device and the internet so that no big companies or cybercriminals can get your personal data or invade your privacy. Since Surfshark does this by changing your location and IP address in everyone else's eyes, this means you can also bypass geo-blocking, allowing you to access and unblock content libraries and streaming services from other countries. A good example of this is Netflix, which infamously has a ton of different shows and movies only available in certain countries. Being from Canada myself, I normally can't get access to one of my personal favorites, the Die Hard series, and my friends in the US can't watch The Office for example, but Surfshark has made these possible among many other things. I was blown away by how incredibly easy and fast to use it is, taking just 1 or 2 clicks upon startup and maybe 5 seconds to connect. You can also set your favorite locations, choose between several locations within many countries themselves, and also use the multi-hop feature which connects you through 2 countries for extra protection if you're on public Wi-Fi for instance, which is usually easy pickings for hackers. Those are all things I haven't seen from other VPNs, but there's another reason you should choose Surfshark. They've partnered with me to bring you 83% off plus 3 extra months for free with our very own promo code SYLPH. That is a ridiculous discount. You can also use one account on an unlimited number of devices, and there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk in trying it out. Make sure to click the link in the description below and use code SYLPH and unlock the true power and security of your internet. Thanks again to Surfshark for sponsoring this video, and let's get into the run. For our starter, I decided to pick Snivy so that our rival chooses Tepig, as him having Oshawott would just be unfair to him. After getting some Pokeballs, the Nuzlocke rules officially start, meaning it's time to find our first encounter. Luckily, in Black 2 and White 2, there are electric types available early on, as in most games, including Black and White, electric types are quite hard to come by until about the mid-game or so. Our first encounter is found in Flossessi Ranch where... okay, come on, it's not just me, right? Right? Mareep is found here, so we catch one and nickname it Cleopatra. Cleopatra has a calm nature plus special defense and minus attack, which isn't bad at all. Once we deposit Snivy, it's time to train this thing up, and the funny thing is that other Mareep actually give special attack EVs, so this is the perfect place to train it in addition to the Psyducks. With Cleopatra at level 8, it's time to take on our rival. Since we have the static ability, it's a bit of a hard decision whether or not to Thunder Wave off the bat, since his first tackle could very well paralyze him, and then we could miss out on a free turn of damage, so I decided to just spam Thundershock, and somehow, despite Thundershock and static having a chance to paralyze, it never happens. But he only takes us down to 12 HP before we can KO him. With that, it's time to head back to Aspertia City to take on our first gym. Since we only have Mareep, it was actually incredibly difficult to stay under the level cap, but we make it just in the nick of time to Charon. He starts with a Patrat, and I decide to go for Thundershock right away, which does a bit less than half. He goes for Workup to increase his attack, and I decide to go for Tackle here to avoid bringing him into potion range before we get hit by Tackle to 22 HP and can take him out on the next turn. His second and final Pokemon is Lillipup, which outspeeds and goes for Workup right away. I hit him with Thundershock and it does about a third. His tackle brings us to just 6 HP, but we get the static paralysis right before our Oran Berry heals us. Thankfully, Alder gave us 5 Oran Berries, but we're still within KO range regardless. Our Thundershock brings him down to a third, and then on the next turn, due to paralysis, we outspeed and can take him out. Whew. This battle took 3 entire restarts of the game called a wipe in order to pull off successfully. It's a weird situation since all we have is Mareep, which evolves slightly after the level cap, and we just cannot possibly win unless we have luck with paralysis. After the gym, Bianca gives us the TM for return, which should prove useful once we have Pokemon that actually like us. On our way to Verbank City, Cleopatra finally evolves into a Flaffy, which thankfully gives us some more bulk and power. In Verbank, we run into this dude who trades something of more worth, his Great Ball, for something of less worth, a Pokeball.
Why are you the way that you are?
Also, you know I've been playing these games way too much when I instinctively know to come here to get the Silk Scarf. This place doesn't even exist. After exploring the city, it's time to grab our next encounter from the Verbatin Complex exterior, which ends up being an Ellicott, the reason why we picked White 2 to begin with since it's exclusive to this game. We successfully catch one and nickname it Lightyear, and Lightyear ends up having a relaxed nature plus defense and minus speed. Minus speed is absolutely terrible for a Pokemon that prides itself on its speed, but I mean, maybe the plus defense will help us live a ground move at some point, who knows. Now the Verbatin Complex actually has 2 different areas, the exterior and the interior. In the game's programming, they're registered as different areas, there's a screen transition between them, and they also have distinct encounters. For the purposes of this run, I'm going to classify them as separate areas as well, meaning we can get a second electric encounter in the interior, Magnemite, whose entire line isn't available until what is basically the post-game otherwise. You guys always say I'm too strict with the encounters, so there, I'm practicing some self-love. We successfully catch the Magnemite and name it Magneto. And Magneto ends up having an adamant nature plus attack and minus special attack. That is absolutely brutal, the worst possible nature. With that, it's time to take on the Verbank Gym. The trainers in the gym go smoothly, including guitarist Billy Joe. Alright, now this is either a Billy Joel or a Billy Joe Armstrong reference, you guys vote which in the comments below. This is more important than the standard fossil debates, okay? Don't let me down. This guy here says, "Are you a trainer? So does that mean you're thinking about the type balance of the Pokemon in your party?" Yes. I'm pretty sure this guy just implied I'm not a trainer. Watch yourself, buddy, or I'll rebalance your ass. Roxy herself is of course a poison-type gym leader, and I'm pretty sure they put Magnemite right beside her gym on purpose, as it either resists or is immune to every single one of her Pokemon's moves. I don't know if it was a point of pride or something, or perhaps my inherent drive to make things more challenging, but I said to myself that I wouldn't use Magnemite for this battle at all. Roxy leads with Coughing, and I lead with Cleopatra. I hit it with Thunder Wave right away, as we don't want to give it a chance to poison us, because then Venoshock from Whirlipede would do double damage. After getting hit by Tackle, I go for Charge to raise our special defense and power up our next Thundershock, which ends up nearly KOing it, but then it stays paralyzed. Roxy uses a Super Potion, but our next Thundershock then gets a crit to take it out. In comes Whirlipede, and it actually outspeeds us to hit us with Venoshock, which leaves us with about a half health thanks to our special defense raise. I go for Charge again, and she hits us with Pursuit, which then activates our Oran Berry, and Thundershock only brings it to about half. Eventually, we get brought to just 14 HP, and we use one more charge to power up Thundershock so that we don't bring it into potion range, but then she uses Protect when we try to Thundershock, so Charge is no longer in effect. 200 IQ competitive player Roxy is. She hits us with one more Pursuit, and we get brought to just 6 HP, after which a Thundershock does the job. That was kinda crazy, but I feel good about it. 2 badges down. Upon arriving in Castelia, we end up exploring the city since there are a lot of useful items that we can get here. The first is the experience share, which this guy gives us as soon as we enter the building, and then he just leaves. Wait a minute, were you just waiting for my arrival? How did you know I was coming? This girl also asks us what starter we chose, and I lie and say Tepig so that she gives us the Charcoal, since the Miracle Seed and Mystic Water are kinda useless for our electric types. Shh. These 2 dudes in the alleyway are looking pretty creepy. Let's see what they're up to. Grin. Hehehe. You can't be serious. Am I right? Yeah. 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 Hey, yo. What the f? Alright, that's not even a remotely coherent conversation. Oh, son of a... we lied for nothing. Castelia City is actually the location of our next encounter, and more specifically Castelia Park, located in the center in this outdoor area only accessible through the sewers. Here we can catch an Eevee, which we nickname McQueen. As part of our rules, we won't be able to use McQueen until we find a Thunderstone and can evolve it into Jolteon though. McQueen has a docile nature which is neutral, and we can't complain about that. Overall, in Castelia we got some great items including the Experience Share, Charcoal, Scope Lens, Leftovers, Twisted Spoon, Hard Stone, and Miracle Seed. A great haul. With that, it's time for the Castelia Gym. Now, I'm used to taking the path with the trainer here, but this time I was like, what's on this side? Oh, I'm an idiot. The Castelia gym is overall kind of a tricky one for us, as a lot of the bug types in the gym also have the grass type, causing them to resist our electric moves. We had a few close calls against the trainers, such as with Lightyear against a Sewaddle, which survived on like 1 HP and broke through paralysis, but thankfully just used String Shot, otherwise he would have killed us. And a Swadloon that took Lightyear to literally 1 HP before getting paralyzed by static, but we made it through safely. Realizing Berg could be a little bit more difficult than I thought, I decided to head to Route 4 to fulfill the 40 Pokemon scene requirements for the Eviolite to help us out. After teaching Cleopatra strength for neutral coverage and giving her the leftovers, Lightyear and Oranberry and Magneto the Eviolite, it's time for our third gym battle. Since Berg leads with Swadloon, I decided to go into Cleopatra first so we have some neutral coverage against it. Strength does a bit less than I thought it would, and Swadloon uses String Shot to lower our speed. Realizing our situation, I go for Thunder Wave, but Swadloon now outspeeds us and hits us with Razor Leaf and gets a crit to bring us to below half. Dear lord. Thankfully, we do paralyze it and our leftovers bring us just above half. Even still, another crit will KO us, so I switch into Magneto and Swadloon stays paralyzed. Sonic Boom doing a set amount of damage is great for this situation, and Magneto takes down Swadloon with relative ease even after he potions. I was initially planning on saving Magneto for later when Leavanny comes out, but it's looking like he's gonna have to handle this on his own. Thankfully, he learned Magnet Bomb recently too, which is super effective against the Dwebble and takes him down in a few hits. Leavanny is his final Pokemon, and I make sure to try to hit it with Thunder Wave right away, but its Razor Leaf hits us to below half before we do. 2 Razor Leafs could very well take us out, especially with a crit, and Sonic Boom does about a quarter, and Leavanny's Citrus Berry eventually activates too. Thankfully, with a combination of paralysis and Leavanny repeatedly using String Shot for some reason, perhaps in an attempt to make it faster than us despite the paralysis, it only gets off 1 more Razor Leaf in the battle, bringing Magneto to just 14 HP. Knowing a crit would KO, I switch into Cleopatra, who's able to take it down with a few strengths. Honestly, if that thing had used Razor Leaf instead of String Shot so many times, that likely would have been the end of our entire run, but it seems the paralysis saved us and triggered some weird AI decisions. On our way through Route 4, Colress decides to show us his rock collection. Cool, man. You keep doing you. I had honestly forgotten how different Route 4's layout is in White 2 compared to Black 2, and along the way we find the Dig TM, nearly have Ellicott killed yet again with another 1 HP survival, find the light clay item in this crazy winding path dead end area, encounter a wild overworld Braviary which apparently shows up every Monday, which I also forgot about, and we get some much needed citrus berries from a generous Karate Man. Now here in my notes, I wrote down Join Avenue Saga. I think I was just impressed that this man is incredibly rich, owns a lot of real estate, and has a group of women who follows him everywhere he goes. So yeah, that's that. We arrive in Nimbasa City next, where we can do something kind of cool. Pick up this hidden Thunderstone right outside the Pokemon Center. I'd like to meet whoever programmed this to be there and give them a hug, because now we can evolve our Eevee into a beautiful Jolteon and finally start using it on our team. After saying some weird things, this girl takes us up on a Ferris wheel ride. She then says, "Phew, it's so muggy. I shouldn't have worn my apron." Alright, I don't need to say what we're all thinking, right? This is like the start of a... You know what, never mind. Sweat is making my clothes stick to me. I'll be fine. Check out the scenery. Do you mean the scenery in here or outside? Because that seems awfully yeesh, I'm completely drenched in sweat. Alright, you know what? I'm leaving. Get me off. I mean off the ride. Before we hit up the Nimbasa Gym, we actually have another encounter we can get in the Lostlorn Forest. Before we get to it, we encountered a trainer with a Drillbur. It took me until now to realize it, but encountering a Drillbur or Excadrill is literally a run-ender right off the bat. But thankfully, this one doesn't appear to have any ground moves at all. I will definitely be thoroughly researching all the routes and their trainers from now on. Our next encounter is only a 10% chance to find in the shaking grass spot, so it takes a damn long time, but eventually we find it, Emolga. We catch it and name it Mickey, and it turns out to actually have a modest nature, which is, like, ideal. Aside from our jolly Pidgey we found in our last challenge, it's definitely not too often that we get a really good nature, so I'm thrilled. After completing the former gym's roller coaster shenanigans, we take on some of the trainers in the newly renovated gym, and they're manageable overall, although we did have a few close calls. Before Elisa, the gym leader, we need to do some grinding, so I hit up the Lostlorn Forest, where there are 2 good grinding methods. Audino, of course, but also this trainer who is a repeatable battle, meaning if you exit the forest and come back, he'll battle you again immediately. During the process, we have an evolution bonanza as Lightyear evolves into Electabuzz, meaning as far as our rules go, he's now fully evolved. Cleopatra evolves into an Ampharos, and Magneto evolves into a Magneton. We got really fortunate with this since all 3 of them evolve at level 30 and the next level cap is exactly 30. Should be really helpful. It's time for the 4th gym leader, Elisa, the electric trainer. Since we're operating with the same type, this is kind of an awkward matchup. As much as Magneton seems like a shoo-in here, her Emolga could just Volt Switch into Zebstrika, which does have Flame Charge. I attach a Citrus Berry to Jolteon, Leftovers on Emolga, and the Silk Scarf on Ampharos for strength, and go for it. I decide to lead with McQueen, who has the Volt Absorb ability, that way we can block the Volt Switch from Emolga and it can't really hurt us otherwise. Unfortunately, Jolteon only has Thunderfang at the moment, which is not only less powerful since it's physical, but on the very first hit, Emolga's static activates and paralyzes us, and its first pursuit attack crits us immediately. Uh-oh, not a good start at all. She then withdraws Emolga and forces a switch into Zebstrika. Whoops, I thought she was limited to Volt Switches for that. Evidently not. I had gone for Quick Attack here to avoid bringing Emolga into the potion range, but thankfully it does get a crit on Zebstrika, so it wasn't a terrible choice. She then hits us with Flame Charge and gets another crit, but we survive on just 9 HP before our Citrus Berry activates. How? I had taught Jolteon Dig, so I decided to go for that, but we get paralyzed on the way back up. This is insanely bad luck. She hits us with another Flame Charge down to just 7 HP, then we get paralyzed again. Unbelievable. I'm forced to switch now, so I go into Cleopatra and Zebstrika just went for Quick Attack, and finally the luck turns in our favor and we paralyze it with Static. Then Strength is able to take it down with a crit. This battle is insane. Laffy comes out next and we hit it with Silk Scarf boosted strength to a bit above half, and then it paralyzes us with Thunder Wave. After she uses a Hyper Potion, we're able to take it down below half with a few more strengths, but we're getting paralyzed too often, so she brings us to just 25 HP. We're within crit range here, so I'm forced to switch and go into Magneto, who gets paralyzed right away and can't seem to hit Flaffy. Then she Volt Switches into Emolga, which immediately avoids the Sonic Boom on the switch. I can't even. What is this battle? We get paralyzed yet again, but thankfully Emolga can't do much to us. Then we use Spark to bring it into the red and also paralyze it, after which another one KOs. Laffy comes back out and gets KO'd by a Magnet Bomb after hitting us. I have no words for this entire battle. That was just madness all around. Our team was badly damaged, but we made it through for our 4th badge. While leaving the gym, Elisa approaches us with her gang of models, and I thought she was gonna come beat the shit out of us if I'm honest. After traversing a tough route, we arrive in Driftvale City. Now, I pushed my head to the absolute limit trying to figure out how in the world we could possibly take on the ground-type Driftvale Gym. If I'm honest, I didn't think about how we could approach it at all. I just knew it would be one of our biggest challenges, and I sincerely don't even know if it's possible at this point. I decided to gather up as many resources as possible and figure out a strat from there. We can pick up some great items such as the air balloon from one of the apartment buildings and the expert belt from the market. Thankfully, the next route, Route 6, is actually open to us, so we can move ahead to Chargestone Cave, where we can pick up our next encounter, a Joltik. We catch one and name it Voltaire, and it ends up having a calm nature, plus special defense and minus attack, which is fine. On our way, we also find one of the ground gems from a dust cloud, which could come in handy too. For taking on the gym trainers themselves, I was super nervous, but I came up with the best strategy I could after a lot of thinking and researching. In Driftvale, there is a move tutor who teaches moves for shards. After getting enough red shards, we can get Ice Punch, which we can teach to Electabuzz. Since Electabuzz will outspeed everything in the gym, this should be great, and we can also attach the Expert Belt for 30% more damage on super effective moves. The only issue is Crocorox with Intimidate, but my calcs tell me we should still one-hit KO them. This strategy ends up working brilliantly, as Electabuzz is able to outspeed and one-hit KO every single Pokemon from every regular trainer in the gym. But now it's time for one of the biggest challenges of all, Clay, the gym leader. I can't tell you how long I spent planning and strategizing for this battle, and honestly, it was seeming impossible. I finally came up with something I thought might be viable, but instead of explaining, let's just try and execute it. Clay leads with Crocorock right away, and since I can't send out Lightyear since he wouldn't kill on this one since it's a higher level and we don't have the Expert Belt on him anymore, you'll see why, I lead with Magneto to also take the Intimidate. I then switch immediately into Lightyear with the air balloon attached so that Bulldoze doesn't affect us, after which an Ice Punch can take it out. So far, so good. But in comes the Sand Slash, and my calcs tell me Ice Punch will do nowhere near enough on it, and I need to conserve Electabuzz for later. Here, I decide to switch into Mickey, who of course is part Flying type, and the Sand Slash actually goes for Crush Claw, confirming my suspicion that the AI actually knows whether or not you have an air balloon right away. Crush Claw lowers our defense, but we should be able to survive one more non-crit, so I risk it and go for Acrobatics just to do a little chunk on Sand Slash. after which it hits us again down to just 11 HP before our berry. Here I switch into Magneton, who I know resists everything it has but ground moves, and he indeed goes for Crush Claw again. Now what I absolutely need this Sandslash to do is to lock itself into Rollout so we can safely take it out. And the fact that it used Crush Claw on Emolga when it had super effective Rollout concerns me. I switch back into Emolga since I know he's going to go for a ground move on Magneton, and I go for Acrobatics now that we have no item, which does double damage. And without the defense drop, I know we should survive an attack, and Crush Claw brings us to just 2 HP. My god. But then, Static paralyzes it. Uh-oh. Normally we'd be celebrating, but that's actually not good for our strategy. A few more switches and Sandslash eventually does go for Rollout, but it misses Magneton. Oh. Several more switches later, and we finally get it to hit a Rollout on Magneto. It's time to act. I go for Sonic Boom, it hits us with Rollout again, and another Sonic Boom is able to take it out. In comes the Excadrill, the bane of our entire team. But now that we took out Sandslash with Magneto, we know it will go for a ground move, and we can safely switch into Electabuzz with the Air Balloon. I then use super effective Low Kick with Lightyear, which does about a third, then the Excadrill is forced to pop our Air Balloon with Rock Slide. There is nothing else I can do though. I have to go for another Low Kick. We hit it down to the red, its Citrus Berry activates and heals it to half, then it takes out Lightyear with Bulldoze. That was honestly the only way. I know it sounds evil, like, I never planned to keep Lightyear alive anyway, but I thought about it for so long and that was all I could do. Now I can switch in Jolteon safely and outspeed it with Dig since it doesn't have something like Earthquake or Magnitude which can hit when we're underground, and I attached the Ground Gem on Jolteon for an additional 50% power which allows us to do enough to take down Excadrill. My god, I was actually really proud of this battle. Yes, we lost a Pokemon, but the plan worked well aside from the paralysis on Sandslash, and that was a battle I thought was impossible on the face of it. 5th gym badge down, and this is further than I thought we'd get, to be honest. Along the way to Chargestone Cave, we run into Cobalion, who... I'm sorry, sir, I don't speak whatever that is. Have a nice day, though. In the cave, we start hearing voices, always a good sign, and we have an absolutely insane battle against an Excadrill from a trainer I didn't mean to encounter. I thought we were done with these damn things. Almost all of our Pokemon get brought into the red, and we barely scraped by. On our way to Mistralton City, we found a bunch of great items like the Rocky Helmet, the Magnet, Metal Coat, and an Electric Gem too. Before taking on the Mistralton Gym, I decide to head to Route 7 first since we can get a new encounter here, and a fully evolved one at that, a Zebstrika which we catch and nicknamed Striker. Striker has a gentle nature, plus special defense and minus defense. Not great, but not the worst I suppose. This guy here offers to trade me his Gigalith for my Emolga, and I mean, hey, if I wouldn't have 100,000 people try to kill me if I did so, I'd definitely do it. Psst. Hey, contact me after this runs over. In the Celestial Tower, Professor Juniper gives us the Lucky Egg, which is perfect for grinding for special attack and speed EVs against Litwick and Golbat in this tower. After a bit of grinding, Joltik evolves into a beastly Galvantula, which should be quite a help. Although it's not very bulky, it's also not weak to ground due to its bug typing, which might be helpful. With that, it's time for the Mistralton City Gym led by the flying trainer Skyla. I'm gonna be honest, as I'm sure we could have all guessed, this gym is quite easy given that our entire team is super effective against everything in the gym. To make it even more manageable, her Swoobat paralyzes itself from static, making it an easy KO even though it could have done some damage and has decent bulk too. Swanna is 4 times weak to electric, so there was no hope. Skarmory is also quite bulky, but its special defense is certainly not quite as good as its physical defense. I switched into Magneto so that we could tank all of its attacks since we resist them all, and Skarmory went down in 3 sparks. Not gonna lie, it was very nice to have a little bit of a break there. After the gym battle, I head back to Chargestone Cave to finally allow Magneto to evolve into Magnezone. Having the Eviolite Magneton was nice, but now it's time to sacrifice just a touch of bulk for some much higher power. Upon arriving in Undella Town, we're challenged by our rival Hugh, and I thought that this would be a relatively easy battle since 2 of his 3 Pokemon are weak to electric. He leads with Unfezant, and I lead with Emolga since he could have just switched in Emboar on Magnezone. Emolga nearly takes it out in 1 hit, then it just uses Taunt so we can take it out in 2 more hits after the Hyper Potion. Emboar comes out next, exactly what I was expecting, so I go for the Acrobatics which does just under half, but his takedown not only gives him recoil, but also paralyzes through static so 1 more can take him out. His last Pokemon is Simipour, and I'm like, we got this in the bag. I switch into Voltaire, he goes for Scald, and it does massive damage and burns us. Problem is, I don't think we'll one-hit KO, so I'm forced to switch into Magnezone, and Scald does just about half on him even. Holy. I go for Charge Beam, he hits us with Scald, and thankfully no burn or crit, and Charge Beam doesn't even KO. I'm forced to switch into Cleopatra now, and she gets crit all the way down to 33 HP. This is not good. How is a water type doing this to us? Running out of options, I switch into Jolteon, and we survive a Scald with just about half, but thankfully we outspeed and take it out with Discharge. A water type nearly swept our entire electric team. Now we begin to see some of the weaknesses of this team. The frailty combined with any Pokemon outspeeding us is a bad thing. After picking up the Metronome item from Lentimus Town, it's time to go to Opelousas City. The gym here is an interesting one as Dragon resists electric, so this should be challenging. Thankfully, by using Magnezone defensively and Galvantula and Jolteon offensively with Signal Beam and Shadow Ball respectively, we're able to make it through the gym trainers with a couple close calls. It's time for our 7th gym battle, Drayden. I grinded right to the level cap, came up with somewhat of a strategy, and decided to go for it. My main concern, of course, is the ground-type Flygon and his dragon-dancing Haxorus, but let's see how this goes. Drayden leads off with a Druddigon, and I lead with Magnezone. I immediately go for the Thunder Wave, trying to avoid his revenge attack, but he actually went with the Slash instead. I put the Rocky Helmet on Magnezone so that any contact moves hurt the opponent, and this works out well as it helps us to be able to do enough damage to Druddigon to take it out after he potions it, and Magneto took minimal damage thanks to the paralysis. In comes Flygon, and I know he's going to go for Earth Power, so I switch into Emolga, who's immune. I then hit him with Acrobatics for less than half, then super effective Rock Slide hurts us really badly to 35 HP. I switch back into Magnezone knowing that all of Flygon's non-ground moves are resisted, then I can switch back into Mickey. I'm forced to repeat this process hoping Flygon uses contact moves, and through this we're able to wear him down quite well, although Magneto is starting to take some good damage too. Eventually I'm forced to make our move, but I believe our bad speed IVs caused the calcs to show that I would barely be outsped by Flygon, so I had to switch into something that could tank 2 attacks from Flygon before taking it out, since I can't let Mickey die. I decided to send in Ampharos, and I was really hoping for the static paralysis on Crunch perhaps, but it didn't happen. Cleopatra's leftovers help it a bit though, and then Flygon goes for Earth Power, and we survive on 44 HP and can take it down with Return. In comes Haxorus, and I'm feeling pretty scared with our big hitters being pretty weak. I know that Magnezone can take whatever he can use, so I switch him in, and Haxorus went for Dragon Tail, so he gets hurt by the Rocky Helmet as Ampharos is swapped back in. Despite leftovers, Ampharos likely can't take another attack, so I switch into Galvantula here, who gets hit with another Dragon Tail down to 29 HP, and Magneto is brought back, which is actually an okay thing, since it technically gives us a free switch into a Pokemon that we've wanted out there this whole time. So I hit him with Thunder Wave as he goes for Dragon Dance. After that attack boost, I know Magnezone is in KO range now, so I switch in Striker, and he stays paralyzed so I can go for Normal Gem boosted Return that I put on him as a last resort, and he still survives it in the yellow. His Citrus Berry activates and he goes for Dragon Dance, but we outspeed it on the next turn to bring him to the red. He Dragon Dances again, but thankfully we still outspeed and can take him out. Whew. That was a hectic battle, and our team got battered, but we made it through deathless. 7 badges. After some Team Plasma nonsense, Magnezone is already at level 50, so I'm forced to deposit him for now since the level cap for the next gym is 51. Thankfully, that gym badge opened up a new encounter for us in the Seaside Cave, Tynamo. This thing was a 5% encounter and took forever to find, but we successfully caught it and named it Elektra. Elektra has a relaxed nature, plus defense and minus speed, which isn't great. Minus speed is very rarely a good thing, but we'll make it work. The Humalao Gym is of course a water gym, and like Skyla's, I don't think I need to go too in-depth here. Ironically enough, this gym actually gave us a bit of trouble on our grass-only run, but this time it's smooth sailing as Marlin's Pokemon are all easily taken care of by our Jolteon's magnet-boosted Discharge, although Jellicent did land 1 Scald in the process. That's all 8 gym badges, but we have some major challenges to come. While making our way through the Seaside Cave, we almost lost McQueen as a Roggenrola used Explosion out of nowhere, but thankfully I had used Dig, so we were underground at the time. We also finally have Elektra evolve, which I waited until level 43 to do so we could get Thunderbolt on it by level up. Since it evolves fully from a Thunderstone after that, I decided to evolve it into Elektros immediately afterwards, meaning we've got a fully evolved team again. We also almost lost Striker to a first turn Explosion from a Weezing. Things are getting scary, man. After dealing with Team Plasma, it's time to take on Colress. Because of the typing, this was a very hard battle to prepare for. In the end, I decided to just throw Magneto out there and try to push through as much as I could, although he leads with an Eviolite Magneton, which doesn't make things easy, and it uses Thunder Wave on the very first turn to paralyze us. I decide to paralyze it as well and use Charge Beam as much as I can to charge up our special attack, and I was thinking he couldn't switch since we have Magnet Pole, but he goes for Volt Switch into his own Magnezone, which then proceeds to use Explosion immediately, bringing us to just 32 HP. Scary, but I mean, at least that's dealt with now, and our Citrus Berry helps us out a bit. After all the charging of our special attack and having learned Discharge upon level up, we can now sweep through his Klinklang and Behem, but his Metang comes out with us just at 13 HP, so I switch into Striker, who's able to Charcoal boosted Flame Charge his way through Metang, and Jolteon handles Magneton with a 4 times effective dig after a great Volt Absorb switch. A very stally battle, but that Magnezone explosion might have actually been crucial in getting us through Deathless if I'm honest. While taking on the Shadow Triad, Hugh just decides to stand there. Do something, you f***. Next is one of the biggest threats to this run, Getsus. I can't tell you how long I studied his team and simulated the battle in my head, and every time it came as us just having no path to victory. Problem is, this battle's set up weirdly as we had to use Magnezone to take out Kyurem with Flash Cannon, otherwise we would have lost something, and that means we have to lead with Magnezone against him, since the battle starts right away. I go for Metal Coat boosted Flash Cannon against his Cofagrigus, and he hits it with Shadow Ball, after which another Flash Cannon takes him out. In comes Seismitoad next, and after nearly losing the run to mere Palpitoad earlier, this thing terrifies me. I switch into Emolga to avoid the Earthquake. Knowing I need to get damage off on him, I go for Acrobatics, which does less than half unfortunately. Amazingly, he missed his Muddy Water though, but our next Acrobatics barely doesn't kill, and he hits us to about half, then Getsus uses a full restore, so we're basically back where we started. And I hit him back to above half. I know we'll need Mickey for later, so I switch in Striker here, who gets hit by Muddy Water for about a third. This is what we needed Striker for, the normal gem boosted return to take down the Seismitoad. In comes Drapion next, which does have Earthquake, so it is a massive threat. I switch back into Mickey for the Earthquake, then I can go for Volt Switch to Magneto, who resists or is immune to all his non-ground attacks. Unfortunately, we can't use the Rocky Helmet strat here as we needed the Metal Coat earlier, but this strategy works well now that we have Volt Switch, which is a great way to pivot while getting damage off. Unfortunately, Drapion gets a crit on his next Night Slash though, bringing Magneto well below half, but we're able to take him out with Emolga on our next switch. I used Acrobatics to keep Emolga out here in the hopes that he'd send out Elektros or maybe even Toxicroak, but he goes for Hydreigon instead. Not good. I Volt Switch out of there and into Magneto, who tanks Rock Slide well. My calcs tell me we can survive any non-crit from him since we resist all of his moves, but I can't risk it and Flash Cannon might not KO from here, so I send in Galvantula instead so he gets more Life Orb damage, but he goes for Dragon Rush, which brings us to 9 HP, but after the Life Orb damage he's in range for a super effective Signal Beam KO. Holy, that was close. Elektros comes out next, which is quite a wall for us and has Flamethrower. I switch into our bulkiest Pokemon, Cleopatra, and he went for Crunch and actually paralyzed himself off of Static. Amazing. From here, we can slowly wear it down with Power Gem until he's in the red, and we have 41 HP left. Now here, I know he's got Toxicroak waiting, and I don't want to go into that with Ampharos being slower, so I figure the risk is worth it to switch into Jolteon and hope that he stays paralyzed, but he doesn't, and he hits us with Crunch before we KO him. Uh-oh. Toxicroak comes in, and at this point, I realize what must be done. McQueen cannot KO from here. Our best bet is to hope that he goes for Brick Break and switch in Emolga, who could outspeed and KO with Acrobatics, and has a chance to paralyze with Static, but he goes for Poison Jab and takes Mickey down. But we do get the paralysis. Oh my god. I send in Striker, Toxicroak stays paralyzed, it seems he was trying to go for Sucker Punch, and a Spark does less than half, but then we can use the more powerful Wild Charge to take him out. What an unbelievably difficult battle. We lost Mickey, but Mickey made a sacrifice to save the run. The utmost of respect to him. After some crazy battles in Victory Road, we make it to our final rival battle. This one goes much more smoothly now that we're prepared for that damn Simipour, and Elektros was a great help too. After the battle, Hugh finally gives us the Thunderbolt TM. You couldn't have given this to us any earlier, huh, Hugh? Don't forget that TMs are unlimited use in this gen, so that means we can teach it to Ampharos, Magnezone, Jolteon, and Galvantula in place of their stupid other moves. With that, and with as much preparation as I can muster, it's time for the Elite Four. First up is Chantal, the Ghost-type Elite Four member. For her, I thought of a pretty solid strategy. Since our Jolteon is really fast and has Shadow Ball, I put the Metronome on her, which increases the power of moves that are used consecutively. Since all I'll be using is Shadow Ball, it increases power every time and is able to sweep through her entire team, only getting hit once. It's not often the Metronome can be used effectively, but Chantal's team definitely allows for it. I was scared about the Golurk being sent in second and surviving and KOing us with Earthquake, but we pulled it off, and that's a great start. Next up is Grimsley, the Dark-type Elite Four member. On the face of it, his team is kind of scary for us, and I lead with Volterra against his Liepard. Liepard hits us with Fake Out on the first turn, but thankfully Volterra is fast enough to outspeed it and take it out with Signal Beam. Not too often you see a Liepard getting outsped. Scrafty comes in next, and I decide to stay in and hit with Thunderbolt, which does less than half, then it hits us with Rock Tomb to just above half, but lowers our speed. Knowing we can survive another, and I don't want to switch in to have something else's speed lowered, I go for Thunderbolt again to bring it into the red, and we get hit to just 19 HP. Grimsley then full restores, and now that our speed has been lowered twice, I was forced to predict that and go for Volt Switch so we can get out of there while getting damage off. I switch into Elektra here, who I taught Drain Punch using one of the move tutors, and it takes out the Scrafty immediately. Crocodile comes in next and intimidates us, so I switch into Cleopatra since I know he's not going to Earthquake a Levitate Pokemon. That way, I can bait the Earthquake on Cleopatra and switch back into Elektra without the Intimidate since we need Drain Punch for later. We get hit by Crunch, and then Drain Punch just barely doesn't KO him, but then we can take him out in one more hit after being hit by another Crunch. His final Pokemon is Bisharp, which is the reason why we didn't want that Intimidate, as 4 times effective Drain Punch is able to take him down after we get hit by Night Slash. Solid. The third Elite Four member is Caitlyn, who uses Psychic Pokemon. For this, I gave the Expert Belt to Voltaire so that it could use Signal Beam, but the problem is that Caitlyn starts with a bulky Musharna, who survives one with less than a quarter health, then uses Yawn, stopping our plan in its tracks. I switch into Magneto, who also handles her team quite well, but she uses a full restore followed by Yawn again after getting hit by Flash Cannon, which also got the special defense drop. I switch into Voltaire again, but she goes for Yawn yet again. What the hell, man? I switch into Magneto and yep, Yawn again. Unbelievable. Realizing we're kinda stuck and that the drop will allow us to take it out, I just go for it and take that damn thing down, after which we're asleep for the Reuniclus switch. Knowing she'll Focus Blast, I go into Voltaire, who resists it, and go for Signal Beam, but it survives with less than a quarter, hits a Psychic, and we survive on just 9 HP. One more Signal Beam does the trick. In comes Sigilyph, and this is the perfect opportunity to go for the super effective Volt Switch, but it survives on like 1 HP. I send in Magneto here, who's still asleep, and we stay asleep until we get hit to just 43 HP before taking it out. In comes Gothitelle, and this is looking dangerous, but I go for Flash Cannon nonetheless, which brings it below half, but its Citrus Berry activates, it hits us with a resisted Psychic, and we barely survive on 8 HP. I switch into Cleopatra, and she went for Thunderbolt for some reason, so we can take it out with a couple of Signal Beams after paralyzing it with Thunder Wave since she just used Calm Mind on the non-para turn. The final Elite Four member is Marshall, the Fighting type trainer. On the face of it, we have no type advantages at all, but I decided to teach the Acrobatics TM to Elektra instead of Giga Drain since we no longer need it. He leads with Throw, and Elektra brings it down to about a quarter with Acrobatics, after which it hits with Storm Throw, but another Acrobatics takes it down. Mienshao comes out next and uses U-turn immediately into Conkeldurr, which is actually kind of a good thing since I wasn't sure how we were going to take this thing down. Conkeldurr's Citrus Berry isn't enough to save it as Acrobatics takes it down on the second attack. Mienshao comes back out, and now I'm a bit smarter as I realize High Jump Kick might have very well taken us out, so I switch into Voltaire, who resists it, but it still takes him below half. Man oh man. I go for Volt Switch though, which brings it to a quarter, and switch into Cleopatra, hoping for the static activation, but he goes for U-turn again into Sock. Sock hits us hard with Brick Break, and now we get the static activation, and Thunderbolt brings it to a quarter. I realize we're going to need something faster than Mienshao on the field, so I switch into Striker, hoping he'll stay paralyzed, but he gets a Brick Break off to take us down to 64 HP. I go for Spark though, and it does KO, after which we can now outspeed and take Mienshao down with a Wild Charge. A tricky battle for sure, but a manageable one due to our pivoting strats. It's time for the final battle, the champion, Iris. I can't tell you how long I sat there and came up with strategies, and like Getsus, nothing was clicking. Her Dragon Dancing Haxorus is way worse than even Drayden since it also has Earthquake this time around. If that thing gets a Dragon Dance off, it is GG. Another problem is that I was banking on Voltaire being able to get to level 60 to learn Bug Buzz so we could take out Hydreigon in one hit immediately, but we were just barely off with no way to level up. Eventually, I came up with a crazy idea and just decided to go for it. Here goes nothing. I lead with Elektra and go for super effective Drain Punch on the Hydreigon, that way we recover some health back after it outspeeds and hits us. Dragon Pulse does less than half and Drain Punch does a bit more than half, so we can take it out on the second turn with over half health after recovery. Now here's the key. Everything else she has is either weak to or neutral to Drain Punch, so I actually put the Metronome on Elektra knowing this, and she sends out Aggron next, which still survives a 4 times effective Drain Punch just barely on a sliver, then goes for Automatize to raise its speed, but Iris makes the mistake of using a full restore, and we get a further powered up Drain Punch now to 1-hit KO it. Amazing. But she sends in her Haxorus next. I was hoping that we could build these up through her other Pokemon beforehand, but now the biggest threat has come out too early. Oh no. It goes for Dragon Dance right away, and Drain Punch isn't powered up enough yet and doesn't even do half. Another Dragon Dance comes though, and I'm like, oh my god, here we go. But Drain Punch somehow leaves it on a sliver, but it just goes for X-Scissor, which doesn't do enough, and we can take it out. Honestly, if it had gone for Dual Chop, it might have KO'd us. I don't understand why she did that. In comes Druddigon, and Drain Punch does a bit more than half, but then it goes for Dragon Tail to end our Drain Punching. Now here, in my excitement, I accidentally clicked Magnet Thunderbolt, and Druddigon survives on like 1 HP, uses Rock Slide, and gets a crit to take Voltaire out. That was super unfortunate. He did not deserve that. From here though, I send in Striker and use Flame Charge to take him out, that way we get the speed boost and can outspeed Archeops, who could otherwise hurt us bad with Rock Slide and possibly flinch too. And since she sends out Lapras next, we can go for Wild Charge, which is an instant 1-hit KO despite the recoil. And now since we outspeed Archeops, we can have it meet the same fate to win the battle. Incredible. I sincerely think that might have been the only strategy we had that could have worked, and it was still a bit messy and scary at times, but we did it. We completed a Pokemon White 2 Hardcore Nuzlocke with only Electric-type Pokemon. A huge thank you to Surfshark once again for making this video possible for you guys. Make sure to check them out using the link below. If you enjoyed this run, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, as it really does help a lot and grows our community. A huge thanks to my YouTube members and patrons who contribute towards these videos. If you'd like to support and get your name up here, the links are also down below. If you enjoyed, drop a like below the video to help it out, and leave a comment letting me know what kind of run we should do next, and I'll see you guys for our next challenge video.